Today on Better Book Clubs, an interview with Ben Fox, founder of the book discovery site Shepherd. So Ben, thanks a lot for joining me. I was going to say this morning, it's this morning for me, it's this afternoon for you, right? I love that the world is small enough that we can actually talk to each other across the ocean. I'm outside New Haven, Connecticut, and you're in Portugal right now, I think.
Yeah, up north, a little outside of Porto.
So I want my viewers to be able to learn a little bit more about Shepherd because it's almost brand new. I guess it's like toddler age
Yeah.
now, right? About what, 18
Yeah.
months old?
Yeah, about 21 months, somewhere in there.
One thing I think sort of the burning question to start with is why Shepherd is needed. Like what's wrong with book discovery online as you see it?
Yeah, so it kind of got born because I was frustrated when I tried to find books. I read a lot and I am constantly trying to find new authors and new books. And I got frustrated because when I went to Amazon, they have these top 100 book pages, but a lot of them, especially in genres I read, are very gamified. So I kept, these books are rated in the top 15 or 20 for this category, and I try them and I either didn't like them or it was a lot of the same series. I hit a lot of frustration points where I felt like all they were showing me was 100 books, and they weren't giving me tools to sort through those books for things I might like or to use any of the data they have about me and what books I like. And I feel similar with Goodreads, where it's just a giant database of books, but they're not making tools available to help you discover and explore what's inside that huge realm of data. And so that's why I started Shepherd. Is my goal is to kind of help surface books, help discover them and flow through them. So I mean that's a lot where the idea was born of how can I find out what other books people like and then start the process of exploring them, and kind of modeled on walking through a bookstore, seeing where my eye lands and then seeing if I like it.
I think probably Goodreads and Amazon would say, well, our algorithm is trying to pick the books we think you'll like, but you're relying more on human recommendations. Is that right?
Yeah. So the core premise of the site right now is I go to authors and I ask them to recommend 5 books around a topic, theme, or mood. So they're giving me 5 books that they love, based around something, and it's a human something, which I think is better than an algorithm. So it can be, the best romance books to read on a cold and wintry night, or it can be, the best science fiction that's also a detective story. So it really, I like this better because it is humans feeding that in. We also do some stuff with machine learning, but it's all based on this great human data. And one of the frustrations I have with Amazon is I would buy a book and I didn't like it, or it wasn't for me, for some reason. And they keep using that data. They have a lot of false data in there that gets muddled, and so they would make me recommendations. So yeah, we're trying to do that a little bit differently, based a lot on what humans say is good and how they group things.
Yeah, that's a great point. And also, I know people complain like if I buy a book as a gift for somebody on Amazon, that ends up
Yeah,
in my data, right? So,
yeah,
yeah, so it's more like relying on your friends to tell you what they really like. And also, the people who are making the recommendations are experts in those fields, correct?
correct. Yeah. So if it's a professor of history who focuses on World War II, they're making a list about their favorite World War II books or the best books about the biggest battles in World War II or something like that. Obviously, with fiction, it's a lot more authors who read and love that genre. I would still put an expert on that, but a lot. It's somebody who's passionate about what they're talking about is what we're going for.
So I noticed I think it's in the About section of the website, you call yourself a serial entrepreneur, starting from the time you were a high school student, I think, back in the day. So
Yeah.
I thought maybe you could tell us a little bit more about some of the other entrepreneurial projects you've done and how they led you to Shepherd.
Yeah, so a lot of my early pursuits were heavily based around both community and reviews. So that factors in very heavily here. I don't love reviews anymore. I don't think they are useful unless they pull out more info. I think this is something where Amazon's review system is quite good, but Goodreads really hasn't upgraded their system, and it's fallen way behind on usefulness, because what somebody thinks is 4 stars is wildly different on Goodreads. Amazon does a little better job of focusing that. So a lot of my early projects were around web hosting, and similar type of kind of tech type stuff. So I would collect reviews from people and publish those, help people sort through what was good and bad, that kind of thing, and also some gaming stuff. But a lot of those helped me to understand how to build good systems to help pick out which one I wanted to find, for example. So yeah, that definitely helped.
So another thing I noticed you mentioned was that you read a lot of books, like more than 100 a year, I think you said. Is that
Yeah.
right? That's kind of
Yeah, yeah.
mind blowing because I think the most I've ever read in a year is maybe 35 books. But I'm curious, what are some of your, I know I saw in your last newsletter that you mentioned what you were reading currently, but what were some of your favorite books of 2022?
One of my favorite authors is Christian Cameron. He does a lot of like historical fiction, but a little, adventure-y. And so I read his Tom Swan series, which was really good. And I read it while I was in Italy because it's based heavily in Italy. And that was really fantastic to have, the world and the characters set in, I don't know if it would be 15th century Italy. And I was biking in that area. So that was one of my favorites, one of my favorite authors. Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, which is quite popular. I think he did The Martian. Yeah, he did The Martian as well. And then my third favorite of the year was the Agent Cormac series by Neil Asher. And it was a fantastic series. It explores artificial intelligence and what a society might look where artificial intelligence has so surpassed us. But at their core, they're also kind of a detective series, and just really like them.
That's actually a really broad reading list, what you just mentioned. So that's interesting that because I think some people get kind of stuck in a particular genre and don't really explore outside it. So it sounds like you're pretty not just reading a lot of books, but a lot of different kinds of books.
Yeah, I have been stuck in a big fiction rut. Oh, I wouldn't say it's a rut because I love it, but like I track like how much I read, and I made a big old change. I used to read about half fiction, half nonfiction, and now it's like 10% nonfiction. So I'm trying to read a little bit more nonfiction, and just to kind of diversify, because then I end up going down historical fiction, science fiction. Used to read a little bit more history, but yeah, I'm trying to do a little bit more there.
Did you have any favorite nonfiction last year?
Yeah, actually, I was going to mention it's really good. It's Beyond the Trees. It's an insane story about this guy named Adam, and he decides to canoe upriver across Canada.
Oh, wow.
It's crazy, but the story is really good, and his writing is beautiful because he's describing places that there are no humans, for many hundreds of miles, and he does beautiful descriptions, and it just leaves you kind of hollowed out when reading it. But it's quite good.
That sounds right up my alley. What's the author's name?
Adam Schultz.
I love what you said also on the Shepherd site about complexity and the
Mhm.
fact that books can help us fight that trend of oversimplification of issues that are actually quite complex, and that can't be boiled down into like a digestible tweet or a sound bite, which is of course, what tends to happen with a lot of issues today. And I'm wondering if you had that kind of experience with reading yourself, where there was a book that helped you realize that something was more complex than you had imagined and then helped you understand it better? Like, could you give us an
Yeah.
example of that happening for you as a reader?
I mean, I think constantly, and then I'll try to think, I think even, a lot of people, I think even, they might badmouth, say, like the latest thriller by Jack Ryan or something like that. But, those are things I read as a kid. And I think about it just puts you in somebody else's shoe. And I think it's so valuable to see everything kind of off kilter by a little bit. So even when I'm reading science fiction or any fiction, I think that's just so powerful. One I read lately, there was another one of my honorable mentions for the year was My Name Was Five by Heinz Kohlher. And it was a story that he's kind of taken from all his family's experiences during World War II Germany and written a historical fiction, but it's heavily based on what a lot of them went through. And so it takes place with a 5-year-old watching from 5-year-old's eyes the rise of fascism in Germany. And for me, it was really startling to see the slower pace of how things changed. Because I think, living in the moment, you forget that, you think that things happen real quick, but you forget that they kind of creep in, like, when you boil a lobster or something like that. So it was really powerful to see this kind of slow progression over many years, because fascism and some of the things happening politically around the world, but especially in the U.S., are something I'm keeping an eye on because I am worried about it. but it just reminded me of how slowly things move, even when they're big and big impacts on the world. They take 4 years, 10 years to really start developing.
So our oversimplified understanding of history makes us feel like, it happened, whereas the people who are living it, it's much more subtle, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, it just further reminded me how that it's a very slow process, even though when you look at it from a historical perspective, it's quick and it catches people by surprise. It's almost so slow they miss it, even though it's relatively fast on the scale of human history.
So do you want to take us on a little site tour? Show us around?
Yeah, sure. Cool. So the whole premise of the site is it's trying to increase a certain level of serendipity in the book finding process online, because online bookstores are really, it just feels like a big database where you go there and you have to know what you're looking for. It's a little hard sometimes to really kind of wander like you would in a bookstore, because I love going to a bookstore and just meandering and seeing what catches my attention and whatever's on the aisle. And I miss that. I'm in Portugal, so I don't have English bookstores here really. Otherwise, please support your local bookstore, obviously. So, we're 20 months old, so we have kind of some core features that I'll show. So the first thing I'll show is bookshelves. Bookshelves are a way to navigate to topics because we don't have genres yet. We're adding those as we speak, as well as age groups. But for now, we have Wikipedia topics that we tie everything to. So, for example, let's say you were interested in learning more about China. Obviously, that's a humongous, spread of things. Is we have a bookshelf about China. You can go to this page. This is obviously a very popular topic. And you can see a list of books that are recommended by different people on book lists they have created. So in this case, Ronald Spector did a list on the best books about the Asia Pacific War from 1937 to 1945. So this was kind of what was going on during World War II in Asia. Now, this is one of the books that he recommended, and we've used a lot of technology to extrapolate out of the author's list what those books are about to help deploy them and give people a way to kind of meander through these big topics. And so on this, you can read why he recommended it. You can click to explore it, which explains what the book is about. And you can also see other topics it's connected to. This is the attempt, our first version of trying to help wandering. So if you found this book interesting, maybe you open it up, maybe you go preview it or read more on Amazon or bookshop.org. But you can also do things like, well, let me jump over to a book on Mao Zedong and see what books are recommended and why they're recommended. And towards March or April, we'll be rolling out filters so that on these pages, readers can say, okay, well, show me only fiction or only historical fiction. And they can do different types of filters. Oh, only for kids, only for teens. So we do have more coming in that regard to help people kind of navigate their way through, the virtual aisles that we're creating. From here, the cool thing too is you can see the author who recommended it. So in this case, Daniel Calder did a really cool list on dictators. So I'm just going to show that. So these are kind of the heart of the site. And these are the 5 books that authors recommend. And you can see he did the best books about dictators. There's a little bit about him and why he's passionate about this. In his case, he lived in the former Soviet Union for 10 years and just kind of got obsessed with the whole concept. And he wrote a really cool book, and it explains, kind of his expertise and passion here, called The Infernal Library, which is about dictators and books they wrote and what they liked. It's very interesting. And then he goes through and he tells you, here are 5 books that I love, that I've read. And he says why, and explains why he recommends this book. So yeah, it's a cool way to kind of flip back and forth because you can, go look, okay, here's a book about Stalin. I'll jump back over to Stalin. You can browse through here and you might, go about anywhere and, find another author who did the best Stalin and Hitler era books for young people and adults, which is a pretty unique approach for the time period.
You've built us a bunch of rabbit holes to go down, which is really fun. Yeah.
yeah. And it goes pretty deep. And once we add genres, that'll add another way to kind of cut through and see what books you might be interested in. And one thing we just added is we now have a lot of data from authors about how they've grouped books. And so we're starting to learn, okay, well, what does this book have to do with this one? So for example, I'm going to go up to search, and one of my favorite books is Snow Crash. It's a science fiction book, and we just added book pages. So on this page, it's dedicated to the book. It explains what it's about if you need to know that. You can also explore it like any other. So you can see topics it touches upon: cyberpunk, cyborgs, dystopia of Los Angeles. But it also has a big list of why authors think you should read it. And in this case, 7 authors picked it. So
Wow,
it's a way you can,
crossover, yeah.
yeah, so you can kind of see why did they like it. We're going to try to do more here to surface emotions and stuff eventually as well. But a lot of them just to explain why they love it, and then you can see their list they created that had the book on it. So for example, you go up here and here's a list of all the book lists with it. So if you really love Snow Crash, this is a great way to, well, I really loved it because it was about hackers and cyborgs. Well, this author loved it for that reason too. Let's find some other books that I might like that they liked.
I love that that's
And
broken down by the reasons people liked it, because just because you liked it doesn't mean that somebody who liked it for a completely different reason is going to give you the right recommendations, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
and this is our long-term mission, is to try to help readers that you're like. We call it book DNA internally, but our long-term goal as we get further, which we'll talk about in a second, about user accounts, because I think we talked about that kind of directly, is we want to help identify readers who read similar books and help them discover through that as a big part of our long-term goal.
Another thing I'm noticing as you're walking through this, and I kind of knew this, but I wasn't really thinking about it before, is that the reviews, there are not reader reviews in here, like 5 stars or what did, and so,
Yeah.
I mean, I can think about my own answer to this question, but why do you think this is more valuable? I'm assuming you do, than having readers rank the books or review the books themselves.
Yeah. So there's review systems have gotten really well developed online at this point, but there's some real problems with them in the sense that you know they're kind of a barrier to overcome. Like once a book on Amazon is over 4 stars, generally that means that it's a good book. So what I'm trying to do at this stage is to not help people decide if a book is good. I'm trying to be the person doing online dating with books per se. So my thing here is I want to help you meet a book, and then you can decide if you're going to buy it. And a lot of there's a lot of people that live and die by reviews, and they don't like this, but there's a lot of people that like this idea of strip that away. Let me just hear what other people like, and I'm trying to get away from this review engine thing because it's become so important. So I'm really focused on trying to introduce you to a book that somebody else loved. Every book in our system is loved by someone for some reason. So we've already kind of done that top cut, and now we're just trying to help you meet it through different means. So I'm trying to get people to read a broader selection of books, and give new authors a chance, because it's one of a big, kind of the yin and the yang of the site is helping readers and authors. And so the author side of this is authors face an immense hurdle to get their book bought and sold online. It's so hard. And so I'm trying to help them get over that first hump, which is to hopefully get them their first 150 readers, get them started with 20-25 reviews on Amazon, hopefully good. And then as we get further along, I want to help them do more. But yeah, it's a big challenge for them when we have this constant need for lots of reviews, thousands or at least 100. That's hard to do unless you're a big name already.
And we should say that, so all of these entries on Shepherd were written by an author who was promoting their own book, but then also listing other books in the same area, correct?
Yeah, or connected. We always try to keep them connected, So for example, Ian, I think Ian here, Ian. So his book, he has deemed it similar to this, and so we've kind of, the whole point of they do the list is that they're sharing 5 books that are close to theirs. The idea is by readers, getting this, they're getting valuable book picks, but then they're also hearing from an author they might not know about, get interested in their book, and hopefully try it. Because a lot of the authors who have taken part are new and trying to become, full-time authors, hopefully. I'll show you one more page too, is we do have, okay. This is one we just launched that we're very happy with, but it's books like. So it's, you can put in something a little different because that was a little So like books like Dune. So if you have a favorite book, one of the things you can do is type in your favorite book or author, and it'll lead you here, which is here are books that other human beings love who also read Dune. Dune is very popular, so it gets a very wide selection. But the more narrow you go, it can really show some. So here's let's see, this one's got some good similar, and it's a way to try to help readers find similar books through human recommendations. And then once we exhaust human recommendations, then we show machine recommendations as well.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have the Overstory on my nightstand. I'm looking forward to reading that. I was on the previous page you were just on. Yeah.
Okay.
It's
cool.
funny because I'm not a big science fiction fan. There it is.
Yeah.
So Dune is not something I would type in, but there's a book that I'm really looking forward to reading. So yeah, it's interesting to see what's interconnected.
Yeah, and that's actually how many, I think a lot of authors recommend, 14, which is pretty popular.
Yeah.
And so, so the user accounts, right now, we only work with authors. It's all direct. We don't have any type of user account for the website. So this year we have a lot planned. The first 3 months of the year, we're going to be adding genres, age groups, so you can find books specifically for grades in different years. And we'll be adding filters so you can help, start to filter books based on genre. So that, for example, if you're on a science fiction page, you can say, well, show me only science fiction books for age, 6 or 10 or whatever you're looking for. So that's a big part of this year. And then toward late summer is the rough aim right now, is to roll out user accounts for the first time. And that's a big deal, because once we get those set up, we can start eventually taking steps to bring in readers' favorites. And one of the things that I'm aiming to launch this year toward October is my favorite reads of the year. And it's a different take on reviews per se. It's going to be, what are your three favorite books you read this year? And we're doing the year a little weird, where it runs through like October 1st through the next year. But the goal there is eventually we will allow readers to also pick their three favorite books they read this year. They'll have a cool profile page. It'll be totally differentiated from authors, because authors are the heart of the site. And it'll help us learn and surface books in some cool ways as well as we get further along.
And I love that it's just the top 3. So you kind of get rid of that whole thing about negative reviews, right? And 3 really forces people to like think about, kind of be more specific, I guess, about what they really love reading. That's interesting.
Yeah, and I've been doing this. I have a personal blog where I've been doing this since I started. My goal to read 100 books a year has kind of been a rough goal, although I think I was doing it anyway. But every year, when it turns January, I pick my 3 favorite books of the year, and then I do some honorable mentions and maybe by genre. But it's fun to have to decide which one were my 3 favorites, and then I do a little thing about why. So I want to bring that to more people, and then use that to help readers find some cool books and associations, hopefully.
Excellent. I wanted to ask you too about ads, because you brought in ads, I guess in August last year, to cover some of your startup costs, right? Yeah. And you said hopefully you're going to be ad free. And is that something you're expecting to have happen in 2023, or are you projecting it's going to take a little longer?
Yeah, that's my hope. I don't know if it's possible. And so I've put up a page here that you can find in our FAQ. It's about the business model, because I try in the FAQ to share everything I'm doing. I would like to long-term be ad-free. I don't know how we achieve it yet. The whole thing is funded through affiliate revenue. So if somebody clicks through to Amazon or bookshop.org, that helps give us a little money. We have some display ads. I've been slowly trimming them back to try to find a good balance. And then we have a founding members program where both readers and authors can join as a member for either $50 or $100 a year, and that helps fund us. I would like to remove all ads from the site. It's definitely founding members. Once we get user accounts out, we'll have an ad-free experience, because we'll build that into the membership program, and we'll think about what we're doing there. But I'm hoping to break even on cost for our current team by the end of this year. And then I'll have a better idea of what that means for display ads, because I don't like them. They're pretty minimal at this point, but
I didn't really notice them, to be honest. Yeah. So I bought a founding membership for the year, and
Thank you.
I think it's really cool to be part of something new like this. So I would just encourage people to take a look here on the site and think about doing that, because it's not expensive and it's really fun to be able to say you are part of this brand new thing that hopefully in 10 years everybody will be on it.
Yeah, hope
So
so.
where can people go to read a little bit more about that founding membership opportunity?
I have it right down at the bottom. I finally added it for become a founding member, or even donate, $5 or something, like a fancy coffee cost. But once you click that, it kind of explains what it is, because it has quite a bit more perks right now for authors and more coming. And so I'm going to figure out more for readers as we get further along. But all the payments from founding members and donations, they purely go towards software development, nothing else. And so the software development side is where we currently have one part-time developer who's amazing, and I would love this year to hire a full-time developer, because an additional full-time developer, because that would allow us to build features faster, especially on the user side as we roll that out. But yeah, that's my big goal. Yeah.
So, okay, one more question for you, Ben. And I didn't give you a heads up on this one either, but if you were going to write a book yourself,
Yeah.
what do you think it would be about?
What would it be about? So yeah, I've got some ideas I've been thinking about for years. So probably be, yeah. I don't know about the writing part, because I'm not the strongest writer, as any authors who deal with me know. But I would probably want to focus on like kind of aimed at 11 or 12-year-olds, and the general genre would be more adventure, like Captain Nemo and things that I grew up with. So yeah, I have some ideas around a boy in the future, science fiction future, with a robotic dog that I've been playing with, and one about a giant alien octopus, and an orphan, kind of set a little further back in history. So those are two ideas I've been playing with, but
Great.
I don't have time right now for that. But maybe
Yeah,
one day.
no, we don't want you to write a book right now. We want you to
Yeah.
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 But that should be especially fun, because I think you have a son, right, who's creeping up on that age.
Yeah, he's 6 years old, so
Yeah.
maybe I can time this out.
You got to talk to him and have him kind of do a little developmental research for you, right?
Yeah.
Well, is there anything I haven't asked you that you want my viewers to know about Shepherd?
I always love ideas. So, I mean, I eventually hope to also look if there's something I can do for book clubs. So if somebody is missing something that their book club really needs, because I haven't really found anything like that, I'd love to hear ideas from you, both on book discovery, anything that would help book clubs, manage the book club or do anything like that. But any thoughts or advice would be great.
Yeah.
And it's just ben@shepherd.com for email.
Perfect. Yeah. So you and I are going to have to stay in touch, because that's my thing, is helping book clubs do their thing better. So yeah, great. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today. It's really interesting to learn a little bit more about Shepherd, and I hope that obviously I'll stick the link in the comments section below, and hopefully people will hop in there and see what you've got going on.
Awesome. Thank you, Kathy.
That's it for today. If you like what you see here, please subscribe, and I'll be back soon with another episode of Better Book Clubs.